The Little Book of John, the Revelator, chapter 3, verse 1. And after the Lord explained all these things, we sat amazed, but the Lord was not finished, and he continued speaking, and he said, And now I will open up to my people the 7 declarations of the truth, which I have cried with a loud voice, that are called the voices of the 7 thunders. And I have made these declarations to unseal the 7 seals, binding the knowledge of Shabuah, that have hid them from the world. Verse 2. And these 7 foundations of Shabuah are the connecting link between Elder and the edge of eternity, and they are the bridge between the edge of eternity and the children of my Father, who have sojourned in the temporal world. Verse 3. And Semihaza, who is Belial, hates these pathways to heaven and eternity that have been provided by the loving kindness of my Father for his children, and all the powers of darkness only see these pathways to be the means whereby their prey can escape out of their hands. Verse 4. And because of the envy of all those in Senasio, evil has carefully crafted lies and deceits by those of the nations, like a predator who waits in the day to subvert and destroy the straight and narrow pathway that leads to life, even the pathway built upon the foundations of Shabuah. And they have done this to subjugate the people with severe oversight and draw them into bondage. Verse 5. And the declarations of the truth that I make by the cry of a loud and penetrating voice sent forth by the sound of trumps will carry my message of the truth forth to all the earth and into every place that has been infested with the lies against Shabuah. Verse 6. And when the trumps sound to send forth the voices of the thunders, the prophecies of my Father will be poured out upon the wicked by those among the council of Elder and the spirits of life in Elder, to influence and bring a just day of recompense upon them and to all the many hosts of the Decadarchy. Verse 7. And at last the seals will be loosed before the hearing and eyes of all people, never to be sealed again forever, and all who hear the truth must choose to cling to it or reject it. Verse 8. And great confusion will engulf the wicked, and all their long time ability to hide the truth will vanish away right before their faces, and they will feel no shame for their lies, only the desperation of urgency to find a way to hide from their day of recompense. Verse 9. And these are the declarations which I have made, and my servant John saw and heard them, but was not allowed to write that which the voices of the 7 thunders proclaimed, and he was restrained in order to protect the knowledge of these things, and he only wrote of the effects the declarations had, as seen through the eyes of evil and the wicked. Verse 10. And now I have declared them, and it is too late for the wicked to come against them to prevent the knowledge of the truth which they carry. Verse 11. And these are the declarations I have made, starting with the first, which was about the time I and my band fought to prevail to call forth the Urim and the records of the book of remembrance. And these voices of the thunders are simple, and they shall penetrate into all of the temporal world with lasting and ever-expanding effects. Verse 12. My first declaration of the truth is that the covenant between righteous mankind and the Urkadeshi of creation has once again come into effect upon the earth. Verse 13. And this declaration will proceed, being announced by the living spirit of the east, and the sound of it will be directed towards the earth. Verse 14. And this truth will uncover the lie that has suppressed and denied the first foundation of Shabuah, and the element used in the wedding within the sanctity of marriage is a voice to the Urkadeshi, telling them to identify this man and wife as ones they are tasked with providing for and safeguarding and laboring with to bring the fullness of the gift of life to themselves and their children. Verse 15. But the lie has been that the nations and leaders of nations can better provide for and safeguard your children and labor with you to bring you the happiness of a rich life with the satisfaction of possessions, and their covenant must be to national or world citizenship. Verse 16. And since this voice of the thunder has announced its message, Anokoseed has been judging the nations, and they are now under severe threat to lose their national sovereignty. Verse 17. And this has been brought about because at this time the wicked are not satisfied to find dominion over nations only, but they seek to subdue the entire earth like it was only one nation. Verse 18. And all boundaries of the nations will be burnt up and dissolved, and the nations whose intent has been to subdue the covenant of Shabuah will be forsaken, and nations will no longer be able to provide for their people and keep them in safety in place of the Urkadeshi. Verse 19. And the people of nations will find themselves thrust deeply into the unknown, and they will ask, what is happening to our world? And they will not know which way to turn. And many will turn to vengeance and acts of violence and seek weapons of destruction that will fill the world with smoke, and those who inhabit the pit shall find their delight. Verse 20. And the wicked will be filled with dread, and the prophecies of my Father will no longer be contained, and will be poured out upon the earth, and plagues of scourges and sickness that had been contained by the boundaries of the nations will now spill out to cover the earth. Verse 21. And these plagues will be the delight of the evil masters who seek to dominate the whole earth, and they will use them to oppress the people. Verse 22. And because these plagues will be used to suppress and enslave the people will complain loudly, and the plagues will be grievous and noosome sores to them, and the earth will tremble with the sounds of the first thunder in her relief to see that the end of the domination of the wicked is near. Verse 23. And this declaration by Moses unsealed the truth that nations and leaders of nations cannot be trusted to provide security and prosperity to their people, and that these two needs of the people can only come when the loving kindness of Anokoseed is the sovereign nation of mankind and the Urkadeshi together. Verse 24. And Moses continued and said, and my second declaration of the truth is that speaking of myself, the presence of the man in element and the order of Melchizedek has the power to define the gift of life and the definitions they hold according to the second decree of creation. Verse 25. And this declaration will proceed, being announced by the living spirit of the south, and the sound of it will be directed towards the sea, or that is to say, the multitudes of the people of the nations. Verse 26. And this truth will uncover the lie that has suppressed and denied the second foundation of Shabuah. And the order of Melchizedek has been given the authority to define the spirits of life in elements of the earth in righteousness, starting with our old father, Yasakad, and continuing all through the course of the earth. Verse 27. But the lie has been defined by the nations, so that they can be used to bring the satisfaction of possessions and the glories of ownership in the accumulation of wealth. And in this way, the elements of the earth have been defined by the wicked, and the way they are used brings ill health and oppression to the poor. Verse 28. And the spirits of life in the earth are looked upon, not as family members and fellows in Shabuah, but are seen only to be materials to be exploited and used to empower evil. Verse 29. And this has been brought about by the wealthy, finding the power of domination with the accumulation of their wealth. But the earth belongs to Anokoseed, and he became a man to create it, so his children could have the earth as a companion in abundant happiness. Verse 30. And because of this truth, the wicked will become urgent to maintain their power, and they will cause multitudes of the peoples of the nations to become divided according to the life stations given them by the masters of the nations. Verse 31. And the fires of oppression will cover the people, and violence will enter to come in, and the nations will have no peace, and the gift of life for many people will become unattainable, and there will be multitudes of the living dead. Verse 32. And many among the wicked will be overcome and lose their visions, having only 3 of the spirits of life, because their visions are no more, and finding forgiveness will be no more for them, because they will be utterly blinded to see their perfect selves in the Urkadeshi. And the lives of the captured multitudes will be intruded upon day and night by the Dekadarchi. Verse 33. And in that day, the Urkadeshi will resist being used in the false definitions of the wicked, out of respect for the man and the order of Melchizedek, and they shall withdraw their support from the unfeeling and from those who use the elements of wickedness. Verse 34. And the people will find that which they have come to rely on in the life they have chosen will no longer provide for them, and the peoples of the nations will find those things in which they have put their trust can no longer be relied on to support them in their quest for dominance. Verse 35. And the prophecies of Enoch seed will be poured out upon the sea, and the days will come among the sorcerers that all the element they use among the Urkadeshi will not work for them, and they must resort to only using the Dekadarchi, and who will have no loyalty to them, and they will make haste to find new ways to overcome their enemies. Verse 36. And this second declaration by Motsa unsealed the truth that the purpose of Enoch seed in creation alone can bring human dignity and freedom for all peoples, and the Urkadeshi will turn in one accord to come to the aid of the righteous. Verse 37. And my third declaration of the truth is that all people will now have the Father and God of their choosing. Verse 38. And this declaration will proceed, being announced by the living spirit of the West, and the sound of it will be directed towards the rivers and fountains that are defined to feel happiness, and the sanctity of marriage and family. Verse 39. And this truth will reveal to the peoples of the nations that now the sons of darkness together with their Dekadarchi will be the source of all their provisions and the only ones to feel their needs, and the wicked will look to the devil and the Dekadarchi for salvation, but the righteous will cling to the Lord and their loved ones in Shabuah. Verse 40. And the gift of life will become bitter for the wicked and their children, and the council of elder will be hardly able to constrain themselves from intervening for the sake of the children. But the end must come at the appointed time, and the holy ones will begin to lay their plans in preparation for the arm of their God to be revealed in loving kindness. Verse 41. And the prophecies of Enoch seed began to be poured out upon the rivers and fountains, asking them to withdraw their support from the wicked, to remember the righteous. And the wicked multitudes will come to loathe the circumstances of their lives, and the spirit of death will become intermingled with them. And Enoch seed will cry and look to find his comfort among his lovely ones in Maim. Verse 42. And rage will fill the places of refuge for the wicked, leaving them no place to find rest day or night. Verse 43. And this declaration by Motsa unsealed the truth that his fulfilled vision is the only source of salvation and redemption, and the way to the peace of being in the loving arms of our Father Enoch seed. Verse 44. And the Lord continued and said, and my fourth declaration of the truth is that only those who diligently seek and find their visions of created purpose and embrace the delight Enoch seed had to create them will have their eyes fully open to see the truth in tribulation times. Verse 45. And this declaration will proceed, being announced by the living spirit of the north, and the sound of it will be directed towards the luminaries of the earth. Verse 46. And this truth will uncover the lie that has attempted to destroy the fourth foundation of Shabuah, and by the voice of my counsel, and by the element used in worship in life's passages, knowledge of why a person was created will come to those steeped in the humility of repentance. Verse 47. But the lie has been that starting at an early age, children are conditioned to seek the pathways leading to wealth and a high standing among their fellows, and multitudes in the nations will pursue pathways not meant for them, but meant to empower others, even the leaders of nations, and every resemblance of intelligence will be denied from them in relation to the truth of their gift of life. Verse 48, and minds will be darkened, and many in that day will lose their ability to reason and will follow blindly the commands of their masters to commit horrendous acts without conscience, and they will kill one another, and they will kill with death and with hunger and with the beasts of the earth, who practices sorceries, and every man's hand will be against his fellows among the wicked, and the cities of the nations will fall. Verse 49, and the wicked will come to know that the sons of darkness have been the ones who have chosen their visions and pathways of life, like Semihaza has done from the beginning, using great deceptions. Verse 50, and their willingness to live will fade away, and the true face of wickedness will become known to them all. And emptiness of soul will arise like smoke from the pit to darken their lives, and they will grope in the dark like blind men who stumble to find their way only to become lost. Verse 51, and the Urkadeshi at that day will shed the light of truth and righteousness upon the redeemed of my Father, and Shabuah will be like a bright beacon upon a high hill to call the children of Anokasi to come to him. Verse 52, and it will be the time for the Lord's people to find compassion on the ones who will want to find the means to love, and the righteous will gently and tenderly lead them to the light, and they will hold those who will come in with rich embrace to nourish them and heal their souls, and those who do this are the true children of my Father. Verse 53, and the prophecies of my Father will be poured out upon the luminaries, and they will be ashamed to shed light upon the acts of the wicked before the face of Anokasi. Verse 54, and the fires of the earth and the sun will rebel against evil, and men will gasp under the intense heat, and the wicked will be compelled to acknowledge God and will hate him and lift up their faces towards heaven and curse God and die. Verse 55, and this declaration of the truth unsealed the truth, that the gift of life for man arises out of the vision of your perfect self and the forgiveness emanating from the man that Anokasi became for us in Shabuah. Verse 56, and my fifth declaration of the truth is that the signs of the limits of the tolerance of the powers of heaven concerning the four orders of creation are penetrating into the abodes of evil to bring dismay to the wicked, but eternal hope for the powers of holiness with Michael. Verse 57, and this declaration will proceed, being announced by one of the living souls of the council of Elder, to be the first woe to come upon the sons of darkness, and it will be directed towards the dwelling places of the beast of the earth. Verse 58, and in those days the enemies of the redeemed of the Lord will be wrought upon, and the end of the tolerance of the Urkadeshi will begin to be expressed more fully. Verse 59, and this voice of thunder will speak to all the Urkadeshi, and they will hear it together, and they will move out with sure determination on behalf of their loved ones in Shabuah, and the sound of the fifth thunder will be heard in all the hiding places of the Dekadarchi, and their places of retreat will be invaded with the voice declaring a day of recompense to come to where the sons of darkness dwell. Verse 60, and the signal horn of Shabuah will alert Michael to assemble his host to act on behalf of Anokasi, and they will be charged with casting out the evil spirits who are aligned with the sons of darkness from being among the spirits of life in creation. Verse 61, and there will be no place left in heaven for them to stand, and these spirits will look about and espy the elements of the Dekadarchi that have been brought forth by the sons of darkness, and they will flee to dwell in them, and the spirit of death will follow them there, and from that time on, all those who depend on the Dekadarchi for their lives will be compelled to live with the enemies of their souls. Verse 62, and in desperation, Semihaza will open the pit of the abyss, and in this way he will open the gates of the smoke of burning. And he went there to see if he could discover some assistance, and found none. And those there hated him with an overflowing rage, and the smoke of burning rose up, and it filled the sky, and darkened the habitations of the wicked, and their last hope melted away. Verse 63, and this declaration and the sight of all these things opened up to mankind the true value of peace and loving kindness. And this way, when it was too late, wholesome goodness will become known by those who cannot achieve it, and the evil ones repented not, nor would they turn aside from pursuing their evil ways. Verse 64, but for the righteous, this voice of thunder spoke to them of their hope at last. And now, with the spirits of death being separated from the spirits of life, and the sounds of death cast out from among them, enabling the sounds of life to be magnified, their hope in Anokasi will be magnified, and they will be endowed with great power from on high to bless the God of heaven. Verse 65, but the wicked fell into utter dismay, and their choices in the face of the triumph of Michael, by the clear use of the intervention of their agencies, using the elements of wickedness of the Decadarchy, brought them face to face with justice, and the wicked will begin to revolt against Semihaza and his band. Verse 66, and the prophecies of my father were again poured out, and the rebellious were covered with shame, and what was left of their dominion was in rebellion, and their kingdom began to fail, and their secret acts began to be revealed before all the inhabitants of the earth. Verse 67, and the rebellious were pierced with sorrow, and they chewed their tongues for pain, and they repented not still, nor turned aside from their ways, and vengeance and desperate violence was magnified among them, and the feelings of their hearts waxed cold. And in all these things it can be seen that the day of woe for the wicked was a day of hope for the righteous. Verse 68, and the sixth declaration of the truth is that all the inhabitants of the fourth station of heaven are prepared and ready to be fully obedient to holy instructions from Gieda, and the Urkadeshi are poised and ready to fulfill all they are called upon by Michael to do in creation. Verse 69, and this declaration will proceed, being announced by one of the living spirits of the Council of Elder, to be the second woe to come upon the sons of darkness, and it will be directed towards the Euphrates River, whose definition is that the Urkadeshi, who are the home of mankind, will break forth with the waters of life. Verse 70, and this voice of the thunder will release the living waters of the earth from their obligations to slake the thirst of the wicked, and those waters will express their grief with stubbornness of heart to come to their aid. Verse 71, and the habitations of the wicked will dry up, both with temporal water and the living waters of life, and the smoke of burning will swell up to occupy their way, and the earth will mourn with her waters of life, and she shall shake with great tumult. Verse 72, and there will be signs in the heavens, and the second great woe will come in the form of a great consumption all over the earth where the wicked dwell, and every man will attempt to flee to the land of his home country. Verse 73, and it will come to pass that the four living spirits of the directions will be loosed to perform their work, and they will act in concert together to form a whole and complete element of righteousness, and they will join themselves together to come to the aid of all the Urkadeshi in creation, and all the abiding angels from the fourth station, to bring the course of agency among all the children of men to come to the full. Verse 74, and the peoples of the earth will be separated out and sifted, and some will be taken unto life in Shabuah, and some will be left behind without any assistance or way, and it will all be by their choice. Verse 75, and the prophecies of my Father will be poured out on the waters of life, and his prophecies will proclaim that the gift of life the wicked have chosen will come to be dried up, because their way has been found to be unworthy. Verse 76, and the spirits that guide mankind, both the Holy Spirit and the spirit of Belial, will be magnified to all who are able to pay them heed. And this declaration brought to all the righteous the truth that Anochocee will cause his voice to be heard, and it cannot be diminished by evil. And the saints will find instruction from on high, and their loving Father will comfort them. But in the end, Lucifer, that old rascal, will abandon his own, having led them to a place of emptiness and shame, and there will be a complete separation between the righteous and the wicked. Verse 77, and my seventh and last declaration of the truth is that only the voices of those joined with the holiness of the covenant will be heard in heaven or upon the earth. Verse 78, and this last declaration will proceed, being announced by one of the council of elder named Ebedale, and she will declare the final woe to the wicked and be a herald of triumph for the righteous, and the sound of it will be directed towards the wind to be carried across the earth, both to the low places and the high places on the mountains, where it blows across the rocks of the heights, and the Elam of the heights will pass it on with resounding praises. Verse 79, and her voice of truth will fill the air, consuming all the moments of darkness, and the sweet sounds of life and the praises of elder will resound in creation once again, and the arm of my loving presence will be revealed, and the righteous multitudes of the earth will appear to be a new nation before the face of Anochocee. Verse 80, and the works of Michael and the Urkadeshi in preparing the way will have borne fruits during tribulations, and the love of Gietta and the abiding angels will have accomplished their task in safeguarding the people of Ma'in to carry them through tribulations. Verse 81, and this declaration will uncover the truth that Shabuah will be the glory of Anochocee in his triumph as our Father, and an all-encompassing righteousness will flow out and spill over to cover the earth, and Shabuah will be the watchword of heaven, and the sweet sounds of life will issue forth from every dwelling place of the people of Anochocee, leaving the lies and deceptions of the sons of darkness no remnant. Verse 82, and all that which was sealed will be forevermore opened, and the truth will abound. And now the wicked will have lost their ability to determine the future course of the world, and the day of their dominion will end at last, and be brought to mind no more. And Babylon, the great city of the nations, is fallen, and is no more, and her smoke will rise up and dissipate, leaving no inheritance for those who dwelt in her. Verse 83, and the visage of my glory will descend down upon the earth in rich beauty and gentle love, and at the sight of it every knee will bow, and every tongue confess and witness to the majesty of my Father, who is loving kindness. Verse 84, and my Father's voice will be heard to declare that the judgments of the nations are now complete, and he will invite those in the covenant to step forward to sweep the earth with righteousness and truth, with nothing to hinder them. Verse 85, and the Lord said, having revealed all this to you, I now offer my counsel and guidance to my people. It is important for my people to endure in their holiness through the tribulations, so when I call, they are ready to answer, because the call will issue forth to them to commence the great gathering in preparation for my second coming. And only my Father knows how long the gathering will last, and I want him to have all the time he needs for us to collect his people. Verse 86, and those among you who lose their way during tribulation may miss out coming to the aid of Anochocee, and my people will be called upon to immediately put use the effects of the truth in their lives, so that they can move out across the earth, going forward, consuming all the moments of darkness by loving the lost with heavenly compassion and vital services. Verse 87, and to do this, they must have kept their eyes on the light all during their trials and hardships. Verse 88, And the example you set for your little ones has been given to you by Adai. And if you keep your eyes on the light of Shabuah during tribulation times, your children will be raised up without injury and will be well prepared to behold the gates of Eden. And it is required upon all the men in Zion to prepare their orders of service in purity with knowledge and understanding through study, to bring important ministry to the people in the midst of their trials. Verse 89. And the men, after the order of Melchizedek, must apply themselves through their repentance and faith to learn together how and when to call upon Michael for assistance, and to discern the need to set in place the levels of urgency in both location and more broadly across the earth for the welfare and preparedness of the people. Verse 90. And remember to be gentle fathers to all people, and exhibit your faith to your children when under the threat of dominance, and utilize fully your holy walk with the Urkadeshi to provide for your families. And the need is great for you to be diligent spiritual leaders of both your families and in your communities. And this is done with humility and faith in pursuit of truth of the guidance from the Holy Spirit. Verse 91. And it is important for women of the order of Zedekiah and also the mothers of Ma'in in their clans to prepare every needful thing to call forth the aid of the abiding angels, both during tribulation times and afterward. And they will emerge from the fourth station right before your eyes to do your bidding, and they are even now standing ready and waiting to hear your call. And you too must learn in your wisdom and how and when to call upon them. And this can be done by faith and the humility of repentance before me daily. Verse 92. And you can call upon Gieta in times of peril, in times of need, for comfort or for provision, but do not demand that there can be no moments of deprivation. Verse 93. And the clans of the women must prepare for their order of service, also to bring the needed protection, nourishment, and strength to the people. Verse 94. And when these 7 divisions of Elder are functioning in their strength and purity, the Urkadeshi and the abiding angels will be enabled to hover over their loved ones to empower them from on high. And if you do all these things, you will do greater things than I have done in my walk in the flesh, to preach the glorious message of salvation to the poor and lost, and to lift up and heal and to raise the dead, because now is come the days of your dominion. Verse 95. And to the mothers of Ma'in, your children must emerge from tribulations, knowing how to be happy still and how to love still, and they must know how to make the sounds of life still and how to live together in harmony still. Verse 96. And when you cling to the foundations of Shabuah to build upon them, and you find yourselves steadfast in your covenant with creation, you will be endowed with great powers of love, and the voice of Adai will mingle with the songs of praise from heaven, and you and all your family will act together with your righteous forefathers and mothers in wonderful company to assist in the gathering, and the power of the strength in your marriages will be shown in the strength of it, even as it was in Eden. Verse 97. And to all the saints I would say, know that the 2 parts of the holy order upon the earth stand on the boundary line between the temporal world and the edge of eternity, and out of your example comes crossing over. So I would ask you to support the people of this order and learn to follow their example. Verse 98. And know this, after my 40 days I affirmed my covenant by being baptized at Bethabara, which means the house of crossing over, and the place where I was baptized was the element of righteousness, to magnify my order of Melchizedek. And that affirmation fulfilled all righteousness, because by that act of affirmation, the holy order, which is 2 parts, was brought fully into the temporal world by a man of flesh, even according to my use of the intervention of my agency within the boundaries of the 2nd decree of creation. Verse 99. And my baptism thus burst the boundaries of time and space to become eternal, and this prepares the way for the holy order to be in the temporal world for men and women who have been called and designated from the foundation of the world. Verse 100. And one order is not above another, but they work and act together in rich harmony in the service of the one who is loving kindness, and the covenant of Shabuah will be the salvation of the Urkadeshi, and their fulfilled purposes will give life to Yod and Ma'in, and I make an end, little son. This concludes the little book of John the Revelator. Thank you for listening to this extraordinary book. Shalom.